Night has fallen over Holy Terra. Not that you would know it. There is no sky here, no stars, no wind, only stone and silence. You stand at the edge of the largest chamber ever built by human hands, a cathedral so vast that entire hive cities could fit within its shadows. The air is cold, but not with temperature. It is cold with pressure, the kind that settles behind your eyes and makes your thoughts feel heavier than your body. Before you, stretching into impossible distance, rises the throne room of the Emperor of Mankind. Mountains of Gothic architecture climb into darkness high above. Pillars the size of skyscrapers disappear into vaulted ceilings lost in shadow. Rivers of cables as thick as starship hulls snake across the floor and vanish into walls of adamantium and gold. Every surface is engraved with prayers, victories, martyrdoms. 10,000 years of desperate devotion carved into metal. And at the center of it all, the golden throne. It is not a chair. It is not even a machine. It is a continent of machinery, a labyrinth of arcane technology fused with relics from a forgotten age. Plasma conduits pulse with molten light. Reactor stacks throb like mechanical hearts. Suspended above it all, wrapped in cables, needles, and life-sustaining horrors, sits the broken body of the most powerful psyche humanity has ever known. The Emperor. He does not move. He does not breathe. And yet the entire chamber trembles with his presence. You feel it immediately, a psychic gravity pressing down on your soul. Your heartbeat slows, not from calm, but from awe. It is like standing too close to a star. Not heat, but magnitude. Immensity beyond comprehension. Around the chamber's perimeter stand the Adeptus Custodes. Golden giants. Motionless. Spears grounded against the stone. For centuries they have stood vigil here. They do not speak. They do not shift. They do not blink unless required. Their armor reflects the throne's light in silent, unwavering loyalty. Somewhere far below, deep within the palace foundations, machinery hums with rhythmic inevitability. The Astronomican, the psychic lighthouse of humanity, burns through the warp, its light guided and amplified by the being before you. Every starship in the Imperium depends on this room. Every world, every life. And if even one system falters, the light goes out. The air crackles. A pulse of energy ripples outward from the throne, vibrating through the floor beneath your feet. The cables flare brighter. For a moment, just a moment, you think you hear something. Not a voice, not a word, but a scream buried inside the machine. This is not a place of worship. This is a life support system for a dying god. And you are about to spend an entire night here. To understand what you are witnessing, you must understand where you are. This chamber lies at the heart of the Imperial Palace on Terra, a structure so vast it spans continents. What was once a cradle of humanity is now a fortress world, layered with walls, void shields, and defense systems powerful enough to challenge entire fleets. At its core sits the Sanctum Imperialis. And within that sanctum, the throne room. The room itself defies measurement. Official records contradict one another, some describing it as kilometers long, others suggesting its dimensions shift due to the impossible machinery embedded within it. It is less a hall and more a sacred engine chamber wrapped in cathedral aesthetics, because that is what this place truly is, an engine. The Golden Throne was not originally built as a life support device. It was a control system, a mechanism designed by the Emperor during the Great Crusade to access and stabilize the webway. Through it, humanity would have traveled the stars free from the horrors of the warp. No navigators, no demonic incursions, no reliance on unstable psychic tides. But the webway project failed. Magnus the Red shattered the wards protecting Terra. The warp flooded into the hidden human-built sections of the webway beneath the palace. Demons clawed at reality itself, and so the Emperor took his seat upon the throne, not as ruler, but as barrier. Since the final battle with Horus 10,000 years ago, the throne has served three purposes. First, it sustains his broken body, after being mortally wounded aboard the vengeful spirit. Only the throne's arcane systems prevented his death. Second, it seals the webway breach beneath Terra. Without his psychic while holding it closed, the warp would erupt into the heart of humanity's homeworld. Third, it powers and guides the Astronomican, a psychic beacon projected across the galaxy. Every Imperial vessel navigating faster than light travel depends on its light to survive the warp. Without it, interstellar civilization collapses within months. This is why almost no one is permitted inside this chamber. High lords rarely enter. Even inquisitors require extraordinary sanction. The custodian guard control all access. Tech priests assigned here undergo mind scrubbing to ensure loyalty beyond doubt. Because this is not simply a throne room. It is the fulcrum of human existence. And the Emperor upon it is not merely a symbol. He is a suffering power source. Every second he remains seated, humanity lives. Every second he weakens, the galaxy grows darker. And tonight, you will witness the cost of that survival. The night cycle officially begins not with darkness, but with sound. A low chime echoes to the throne room, so deep and resonant it feels less heard and more absorbed into your bones. It rolls across the vast chamber like distant thunder, vibrating through pillars and cables alike. The first hour has begun. From the far edges of the hall, red-robed figures emerge in silent procession, the Adeptus Mechanicus. Their footsteps are synchronized, mechanical limbs hissing softly with each step. Incense burners swing gently from servo arms attached to their backs, releasing thick clouds of sacred vapor that curl upward toward the unseen ceiling. Binary prayers begin to murmur through vox grills, metallic, layered, and inhuman. They do not speak to the Emperor. They speak to the machine. Teams disperse across colossal control stations built into the throne's outer mechanisms. Some climb ladders into maintenance alcoves. Others connect data tethers directly into their skull implants. Auspex arrays activate, projecting shifting holographic sigils across their vision. They are not repairing. They are appeasing. Every night, thousands of micro-adjustments must be made. Plasma regulators recalibrated. Cooling conduits sanctified. Warp-dampening fields rebalanced by fractions too small for mortal comprehension. Because the Golden Throne is not stable. It is barely contained. Deep below the chamber, far beneath layers of adamantium and sanctified bedrock, movement begins in the sacrificial vaults. Processions of hooded figures escort shackled psychers down endless corridors. Some weep, some pray, some stare ahead with hollow acceptance. The black ships delivered them days ago. Now their purpose arrives. Back in the throne room, a pulse erupts from the Emperor's broken form. The light within the machinery flares brighter for a heartbeat, casting impossibly long shadows, a custodian guard against the walls. They do not react. They never react. But you notice something subtle. One custodian shifts his stance by a single degree, a minute adjustment, as if measuring the pulse, as if calculating threats invisible to you. The Astronomican's hum grows louder. It is not audible in the traditional sense. It presses against your mind, like a distant choir screaming across the stars. Somewhere in orbit, astropathic relays amplify its signal. Across the galaxy, navigators feel it surge. correcting their course through warp storms you cannot see. The Emperor's suffering is translating into direction, and the Mechanicus chant grows faster. Omnicia preserve the conduit. Omnicia stabilize the flux. A servo skull glitches midair, sparks bursting from its optics before it steadies again. A mortal attendant collapses nearby, blood seeping from his nose as psychic pressure intensifies. No one stops. No one comforts him. He is dragged away by servitors, silent and efficient. The first hour is not dramatic. It is methodical, precise, terrifying in its routine, because this has happened every night for 10,000 years, and it must continue flawlessly, or everything ends. By the second hour, the air changes. Nothing visible shifts at first. The Mechanicus continue their calibrations. The Custodes remain statues of gold. The throne pulses with steady, terrible rhythm. But you feel it, a density settling over the chamber. Breathing becomes deliberate. Each inhale feels thinner, as though oxygen itself resents being here. Your thoughts grow sluggish, like they are moving through liquid rather than air. The Emperor's psychic presence is intensifying. It spreads outward from the throne in invisible waves, not chaotic, not uncontrolled, but vast, controlled agony. Focus will layered over unimaginable suffering. To mortals, it is almost unbearable. A junior scribe stationed near a data lectern begins trembling. His eyes glaze over as tears stream silently down his face. He is not in pain. He is overwhelmed. Because standing within the throne room is like standing at the edge of an open warp storm. Except this storm has shape, direction, purpose. The Emperor is not dead, nor is he alive. He exists in a state beyond either definition. His mind stretched across the galaxy, his will locked in eternal resistance. Somewhere beneath Terra, beyond layers of adamantium and void shielding, the sealed webway gate groans under pressure, and that pressure increases at night. The warp does not sleep. Demons do not tire. They press against the breach endlessly, clawing at reality, seeking weakness. And it is during these hours, when Terra turns away from its sun, that warp currents grow more volatile. Psychic tides rise like a dark ocean, battering the unseen barrier the Emperor maintains. The throne reacts. Cables glow hotter. Cooling systems vent plumes of steam. The floor vibrates faintly beneath your boots as internal reactors compensate for the increased strain. A distortion flickers in the air near one of the outer pillars. A ripple, almost like heat above desert sand. For a split second, the silhouette within it seems wrong. Twisted. Too many limbs. Then it vanishes. A custodian spear shifts, the movement faster than sight. The ripple collapses entirely. No words are spoken. No alarm is raised. But the message is clear. The veil is thin. High above, unseen choir chambers amplify the Astronomican's projection. Thousands of bound psychers lend their strength, their minds chained in synchronized torment to maintain the beacon's brilliance. The Emperor stands at the center of it all, absorbing, directing, resisting. You realize something unsettling. This chamber is not simply sustaining him. He is sustaining it. The Mechanicus chants grow louder. Their benheric tones layering into discordant harmony. Data screens flash warnings in crimson script before stabilizing again. The second hour is heavier than the first, and the night has only begun. The third hour does not announce itself with chimes. It announces itself with screaming. Far below the throne room, beneath kilometers of reinforced vaults and sanctified corridors, the sacrificial chambers awaken. Massive blast doors grind open. Lumen strips flicker to life along walls engraved with litanies of necessary suffering. The psychers have been prepared. Thousands arrive on Terra each month aboard the black ships, harvested from across the Imperium. Some are children, some are elderly. All share the same curse, a connection to the warp too strong to ignore. For most, there are two fates, sanctioning or sacrifice. Tonight, sacrifice. They are led in groups through iron archways etched with wards against demonic manifestation. Mechanical arms descend to the ceiling, tipped with silver needles and neural clamps. The psychers are strapped into towering apparatuses that resemble inverted thrones of their own, crude reflections of the golden throne above. A tech priest raises a mechadendrite and intones a final prayer. By your death, the Emperor lives. The first surge begins. In the throne room above, the golden throne responds instantly. Light intensifies along its conduits, bright enough to cast stark shadows across the endless chamber. The air vibrates with a deep harmonic resonance. It is not sound. It is psychic force translating into physical reaction. Below, the psychers convulse. Their eyes burn white. Their mouths open in silent screams as something invisible tears through them. Not flesh, but soul. Their life force is drawn upward through arcane circuitry, converted into raw psychic energy. Some die instantly. Others last seconds longer. None survive the process. Back in the throne room, the Emperor's withered form glows faintly within a web of cables, suspending him. For a moment, a brief, impossible moment, the pressure in the air stabilizes. The Astronomican flares brighter. Across the galaxy, navigators feel the beacon sharpen. Warp routes clarify. Storms momentarily part. Humanity's lifeline strengthens, and the cost is paid in screaming. 1,000 psychers a day, every day, for 10,000 years. The Custodes remain unmoved. They have witnessed this cycle since the siege of Terra. To them, this is not cruelty. It is arithmetic, necessary expenditure in an unwinnable war. Another surge pulses through the throne, stronger than the last. Several Mechanicus adepts drop to one knee, overwhelmed by feedback streaming directly into their cranial implants. The Emperor does not move, but you feel something shift. Not relief, not gratitude, only continued strain. The feeding does not heal him. It sustains the suffering. And as the third hour closes, the chamber grows quieter again. But beneath that quiet, you understand something horrifying. This is not worship. This is maintenance of a dying God who must never be allowed to die. Midnight on Terra does not bring darkness. It brings stillness. The ritual's quiet. The screaming below has faded to distant echoes. Even the Mechanicus chants soften into low, sustained tones. For a brief span of minutes, the throne room exists in a strange equilibrium. The machinery stable, the psychic pressure balanced. And in that fragile stillness, you wonder, is he aware? The Emperor's body remains suspended within the machinery, skeletal and unmoving, his armor fused to his ruined flesh, his face little more than a sunken mass crowned in cables and radiant energy. But his mind stretches across the galaxy. Some say he dreams, not like mortals dream, not fragmented images and fading memories, but vast, coherent visions spanning millennia. Perhaps in this hour of relative stability, his consciousness turns inward for a fraction of a second. Perhaps he remembers the Great Crusade, a time when he walked among his sons, radiant and unstoppable, when the legions of Astartes conquered star systems beneath banners of reason rather than superstition, when humanity stood on the brink of unity. Perhaps he sees Horus, the favored son, the war master, the betrayal aboard the vengeful spirit that shattered everything, the moment he was forced to strike down his own creation, not out of hatred, but necessity. Or perhaps he does not remember at all. Perhaps he fights. Across the Imperium, the warp churns with endless malice. The ruinous powers circle like predators around a wounded titan. Khorne rages at his defiance. Tsench schemes endlessly to unravel his plans. Nurgle festers with patient inevitability. Slaanesh whispers corruption into every unguarded mind. Is the Emperor battling them even now, locked in a psychic war invisible to mortal perception? Some scholars believe the Astronomican is not merely a beacon, but a weapon. A spear of focus will pierce into warp itself. That every night, as humanity sleeps, the Emperor wages war on a scale no army could comprehend. Others believe something even more unsettling, that he is evolving, that 10,000 years upon the throne have transformed him into something beyond human. Not a man sustained by machinery, but God being forged in suffering and faith. The air shimmers faintly. A ripple of golden light pulses outward from the throne, softened before, but deeper. You feel it brush against your mind, not invasive, not crushing, watching, for one impossible heartbeat. The pressure feels intentional, as though awareness is turned toward you, not as subject, not as servant, but as witness. Then it passes. The machinery resumes its steady rhythm. The chamber returns to its oppressive equilibrium. Midnight ends. Whether he dreams, fights, or ascends, one truth remains. He has not fallen, and the night is not yet finished. After midnight, terror should be at its quietest. Instead, the pressure builds. It begins subtly. A flicker across a data slate. A fluctuation warning scrolling in crimson script across a Mechanicus display. Servo skulls hesitate mid-flight, their anti-grav units whining under sudden interference. The warp is shifting. Far beyond the palace walls, unseen by mortal eyes, tides within the Imperium grow violent. A storm system forms, not of wind or lightning, but of screaming thought and predatory will. Warp currents slam against one another, spiraling outward across the segmentum solar. And Terra lies at the center. In the throne room, the golden throne reacts instantly. Energy output spikes. Cooling conduits vent white steam in violent bursts. Reactor columns thrum louder, deeper, like a heartbeat accelerating under strain. The floor trembles, not enough to knock you down, but enough to remind you that this entire chamber is part of a machine barely containing catastrophe. The Emperor's psychic presence intensifies. This time it is not steady. It is focused, a golden pressure pushing outward against something unseen. Across the chamber, the Custodes move, not dramatically, not in panic, but with purpose. Two reposition closer to the throne's primary control dais. Another shifts his guardian spear from rest to ready position. Their movements are minimal, precise adjustments in anticipation of threats only they can perceive. Then the Sisters of Silence enter. They glide into the chamber like shadows, their no aura suppressing psychic resonance wherever they pass. The air feels colder around them, thinner. The oppressive weight of the Emperor's presence dims slightly in their wake. They are not here for ceremony. They are here because something presses harder tonight. A crackling distortion tears briefly across the far end of the hall. This one lasts longer than before, a jagged seam in reality itself. Within it, shapes writhe. Claws scrape against an invisible barrier. A Mechanicus adept collapses, blood spilling through his ears as his mind overloads. A custodian steps forward. His spear strikes once. The distortion shatters like glass, collapsing inward with a flash of golden light. Silence follows, but the warning is clear. The webway breach strains. The Emperor's form glows brighter, veins of radiant energy crawling across the machinery, encasing him. You feel it again, that sense of directed will, immense and unyielding. He is pushing back, holding the door closed, holding the galaxy together. For several long seconds, the entire throne room vibrates with barely contained force. Then slowly, gradually, the surge stabilizes. Warning runes fade from crimson to amber. The deep hours do not bring resolution. They bring proof. Proof that the barrier is never secure. Proof that the Emperor's vigil is not symbolic. It is active. And tonight, it almost slipped 3 hours before dawn. In most places across the Imperium, this is the deadest time of night, when exhaustion overtakes vigilance, when minds wander, when nightmares feel closest to reality. Inside the throne room, something changes. Not an explosion of energy, not a surge, but a withdrawal. The machinery's roar softens. Reactor vibrations diminish to a low, steady hum. Steam vents cease their violent bursts. Even the Benheric chanting of the Mechanicus fades into near silence as systems stabilize after the previous surge. The Astronomican burns steadily. For the first time tonight, nothing appears to be failing. The pressure in the air lessens, just slightly, enough for you to breathe without strain, enough for your thoughts to sharpen again. And that is when you feel it most clearly, the stillness. The Custodes remain at their posts, golden and immovable. The Sisters of Silence linger near the perimeter, their null fields creating pockets of unnatural calm. Servo skulls drift quietly through incense-laced air. No alarms flash. No distortions ripple. No psyker scream below. It should feel like relief. Instead, it feels like being watched. Not by the guards. Not by the priests. But by the presence suspended above the throne. The Emperor's psychic weight no longer presses outward aggressively. It no longer feels like a barrier straining against assault. It feels focused inward, contained, intent. You cannot see his eyes. They're long ruined, sockets hidden behind radiant energy and shadow. Yet the sensation persists. A vast, ancient awareness turning slowly, as though scanning not just a chamber, but existence itself. For one fragile stretch of moments, the throne room feels less like a machine chamber, and more like the interior of a mind, a god's mind. Memories flicker at the edge of perception, impossible impressions that are not yours, marching legions beneath alien suns, the clang of forging pre-march armor, the distant echo of a father's disappointment. Then they are gone, perhaps imagination, perhaps psychic bleed-through. A custodian's helm tilts by a fraction of a degree, as though he too senses something indefinable. But he does not move further. Nothing breaks. Nothing surges. The systems hold. This is the closest thing to peace the throne room will ever know. And it is deeply unsettling, because you realize something profound. If the Emperor ever truly fell silent, you would know instantly. And so with the galaxy, the hum continues. Slow, steady, unforgiving. 3 a.m. passes without catastrophe. But the night has one final trial yet to offer. The final hour begins not within the chamber, but across the stars. Far beyond Terra, in the endless dark between systems, Imperial vessels drift through the warp. Navigator houses strain their third eyes against madness, searching for the single constant in a sea of screaming unreality. The Astronomican, A beam of psychic fire projected from Terra, piercing the Imperium like a lighthouse through fog. And in this last hour before dawn, it burns brighter. Inside the throne room, the golden throne hums with renewed intensity, not violent like the deep hours, not unstable, deliberate, focused. This is the culmination of the cycle. Another wave of psychers below completes their sacrifice. Their souls surge upward through sacred circuitry, converted into raw power. This time the energy does not spike chaotically. It channels cleanly, directly into the Astronomican's amplification arrays. The Emperor's presence expands. You feel it stretch, not physically, but psychically, extending outward beyond Terra, beyond Sol, beyond Segmentum Solar. Across the galaxy, navigators gasp as warp routes clarify. Storm walls thin. Corridors of relative stability open like veins through a living nightmare. Astropads scream messages across sectors with renewed clarity. Battle fleets recalibrate their trajectories. Supply convoys adjust course to avoid annihilation. Entire planetary populations will survive because of what happens in this chamber during this hour. The throne glows, not blinding, but radiant. Golden light cascades across the vaulted ceiling, illuminating ancient frescoes depicting the Emperor as conqueror, lawgiver, and god. The irony is silent. He conquers nothing now. He simply endures. Within the machinery, his ruined form remains motionless. Yet the psychic force radiating from him is immense. Disciplined agony refined into purpose. The Custodes stand closer than before. Their armor reflects the throne's glow like polished suns. They know this hour is critical, not because failure is imminent, but because consistency is survival. 10,000 years. Every dawn preceded by this ritualized burning. Below, the final cycle of the cycle expires. The surge completes. Power stabilizes. The Astronomican reaches peak intensity. And then, gradually, almost gently, the energy output begins to normalize. Outside the palace walls, the first faint light of Terra's sunrise creeps across the horizon. Smog-choked skies glow dimly gold. Humanity has survived another night, not through victory, not through triumph, but through sustained suffering measured in calculated sacrifice. The Astronomican continues to burn, but the crisis of the cycle has passed, and dawn approaches the throne room. The first light of Terra's sun creeps over the palace spires. It touches nothing, not the Emperor, not the throne, not the Custodes standing eternal vigil. The day arrives as it always does, indifferent, blind to the suffering beneath its rays. Yet the chamber itself seems quieter now, calmer, almost reverent, as though acknowledging that the night has passed without catastrophe. Mechanicus adepts record the final telemetry. Their data slates glow softly, noting fluctuations in power, temperature, and psychic output. Every adjustment made, every surge controlled, every failure prevented. The black ships below are empty. The sacrificial vaults are clean. The echoes of the psyker screams fade into memory. Temporarily, the Custodes do not move. They never do. Their vigil is eternal. Their attention is unwavering. Their purpose singular. To protect, to serve, to endure, to ensure that this ritual, this unspeakable cycle, continues without failure. The Emperor remains, suspended, broken, and yet unbroken. A corpse, a god, a prisoner, and a savior all at once. The weight of the galaxy presses upon him, and yet he does not yield. He does not sleep. He does not rest. He does not die. Not truly, not fully, because if he were to falter, Even for a heartbeat, the Imperium would collapse. Warp storms would swallow star systems. Demons would breach reality. Humanity itself would unravel into madness. For now, the Astronomican burns steady once more, a psychic lighthouse piercing the dark immensity of the galaxy. Fleet after fleet relies upon its light. Civilization survives by the smallest margin of psychic endurance. And yet, all of this is sustained by agony, by suffering and devotion, by calculated cruelty and absolute necessity. The palace slowly comes to life with the first human stirrings of a new day. Priests, scribes, and attendants move through corridors now bathed in sunlight filtered through stained glass windows depicting wars, victories, and martyrs. Their lives are measured in service to him, their purpose intertwined with eternal vigil. But the Emperor does not watch them. Not truly. He watches the universe itself. An endless battlefield where life and death are dictated not by chance, but by continued suffering. And you understand a truth, chilling and undeniable, that no matter the dawn, no matter cycles of time or light, the night will return. The rituals will begin again. The psychers will be delivered. The machinery will surge. The Astronomican will flare. And the Emperor will endure once more. You step back. You feel smaller than ever before. A witness to a god suspended between life and death. Forced to shoulder the weight of an entire galaxy every second of every night. And one thought lingers, heavy and inescapable. The Emperor does not sleep. He does not rest. He does not die. And tomorrow night it will begin again. The sun rises. Terra stirs. Humanity survives. And the throne room waits, patient, eternal, and merciless.